Hey everybody, welcome back to the Roundtable of Wraith. I am Chris. I'm once again joined by Roscoe. Roscoe, how you doing today?
Hey, doing great. Staying warm.
Staying warm, trying to in this blizzard in the Chicagoland area. Last video we had Roscoe on, we were talking about his Ravenous Meataxe Brute deck. So we wanted to just come on today and give a quick update to Roscoe's list, which ironically enough includes a card that we were talking about last time that maybe Roscoe you thought was not in the best spot, but it's back in the deck now. So I want to kind of give an update on that. Before we dive into the deck, though, I think it's just important for us to kind of review the premise of the deck. So, Roscoe, the Meataxe, I guess, why the Meataxe in comparison to the Claws or the Club?
Yeah, solid question. Well, Meataxe, I think it's a good card. So I unironically have a belief that people are kind of sleeping on it a little bit because when it hits and does 5 damage, that's great. It comes at the opportunity cost of the draw discard, so you want your deck to have a really high 6 ratio, which adjusts things. So this list looks different than some of the more popular Rhinar things because I don't have as many blues, because I'm not doing the claws, because I want more 6s. So all of those things also make Savage Beatdown good, and I love Savage Beatdown. So this deck basically began and has spent most of its lifetime being a deck that's built around Savage Beatdowning as much as possible. And Ravenous Meataxe is great for that, as if you generate 2 action points, it can be your source of discard earlier in the turn that you need for the Savage Beatdown. And in the meantime, like I mentioned, just kind of synergizes with all the same stuff. So you just build a deck that's chock full of 6s. It's a really efficient, you have like an amazing 1-card hand of doing 5 damage. And yeah, love it. I love the Meataxe.
I like it. Yeah, so I guess the major breakdown there, like you said, was when we want to get the Savage Beatdown off, you have a discard enabler in the arena already with your weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
so you have like a scab skin roll, like worst case way to Savage Beatdown is scab skin roll, Meataxe, then Savage Beatdown. And the deck is full of a lot of like fancier and better ways to make that happen. But you have at least that on tap as an option.
Sure. Well, appreciate the little breakdown there and review. So looking at the screen here, we have your current list up. And as we were talking off screen, this list is probably about 90% the same as to what you had presented in the previous video a couple of weeks ago. However, we do have a couple changes here. And I do see a card that was also mentioned in the comments. We had a lot of awesome comments from the community, people watching about things they've tried or suggestions or questions about cards that they did or didn't see. So before we get to the big one, I do see that there's a Massacre now in the deck, which was not there previously. So any comments on the Massacre 1X include?
Yeah, Massacre. The reason it's in the slot is I wanted more reds that I wanted to play. I've cut some of the reds that were in the previous list. Like I'm an Alpha Rampage hater now, and I had another discard card, but like I don't want to have too many 3-card hands or cards that are just 3-card hands in and of themselves.
Sorry to cut you off. Wasn't it the Savage Swing, maybe? The red Savage Swing?
Yes, Savage Swing is out.
Yeah. So yeah, Massacre, pretty cool discard effect, obviously, but you're just sticking at 1 there for right now.
Yeah, it's awkwardly, the deck isn't going to hit its like when this is discarded as a cost very often, because we have a lot more of the draw discard things which are not actually as a cost. So it's actually intended to a lot more often be like just played because it synergizes with the same things that Savage Beatdown wants, like some other thing that discards a card that gives you an action point. And then you have this as 2 cards for 8 damage and an Intimidate, which is pretty solid. So it's like a kind of a mini Savage Beatdown when you need it.
Sure. That's a really good point you brought up. I didn't consider the fact that if you rip it off the Pulpane or the Bear Fangs, that you're not going to get the trigger. That's actually,
that is too bad. It would be a lot better if it triggered off of all those things. Yeah,
sure. I could see myself. I didn't notice it, but I could see that being easily overlooked by some people if they're just playing it regularly and like, oh, I discarded it. But to your point, it's not the additional cost of paying the card. It's just an effective draw discard.
Yeah. So. Massacre specifically needs to be discarded to pay the cost of a brute attack action card.
Right. Interesting.
So that's pretty much only Savage Beatdown's own, or in the list right now, that's Savage Beatdown's own discard.
Savage Feast.
Let's see. Blood Rush, Bellow works. And yeah, Savage Feast, the discard then draw.
Gotcha. Moving on from the Massacre, I see a 1 copy of a blue Majestic, tear limb from limb. So what do you got to say about that guy?
Yeah, tear limb from limb is something we're trying out, and I am liking so far. So on paper, it's extremely good because it's exactly the kind of thing that we want, like actually playing the card. It causes a draw discard, and it gives you an action point. So it leads into Savage Beatdown beautifully. The deck is full of cards that do that. And so in that sense, it is kind of a 6 power go again that's blue, which is great. Obviously, it has 2 drawbacks, though. It doesn't actually have 6 powers, so it whiffs if it's the actual discard, and it doesn't block. So right now, especially the no blocking, I actually like blocking with this deck, even though I have like 8 cards that don't block. So I'm trying to keep that number down quite a lot. So there's pretty high opportunity cost to including this one, which is why there's only 1 right now. But besides, whenever you can ignore those opportunity costs, which they don't always hurt you, it is doing exactly what we want to do. And when it's not, it's blue. So
yeah, of course. Yeah, it's always a blue at the very least. So yeah, this is a really cool card. And I think to your point, it's definitely the ceiling there and the synergy is certainly worth at least having 1 in there to, give it a go when the time is right.
I'm thinking so.
Yeah. I think someone mentioned that card in the comments from the last video. So either they had
Definitely
played
does.
it or were asking about it. I can't recall exactly what it was, but so shout out to whoever did that if you're watching again. I guess lastly here, which is the big heavy hitter here, which is Berserk. And in your previous video, this was a card that you had mentioned you were kind of cooling off on. And I think maybe there is a piece of equipment that maybe has kind of gotten you back on the train. So can you kind of talk to us about the Berserk and possibly the Skullhorn?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I was cooling on Berserk, but including Skullhorn is what has really risen its stock in my brain. So Skullhorn has like action, you destroy it, you draw a card and discard a card, which is nothing crazy in and of itself. But that combos with Berserk very well. Like whatever turn you play Berserk in, it extends the number of discards you have by 1 without actually costing you a card from hand. And in the case of Berserk, you just want to do that over and over, and you actually start profiting cards. So that's like abstract. And also kind of a more concrete way to look at it is that it's really easy during the game to like start a turn with Skullhorn and end a turn with Ravenous Meataxe. So you have 2 draw and discard effects like just on the board at any given time. And if in between those you fit any other draw discard effect, which the deck has a lot of because those are exactly the kind of things we're trying to run to make Savage Beatdown happen, then you're at the point where Berserk has the chance to trigger 3 or even more times and is actually making you crazy amounts of money, at which point, yeah, it's totally worth the include. So I'm running 2 copies right now because it's not a 6, so I don't want to be flooded with it. But I have found it pretty consistent to have 1 turn where Berserk draws me 2 or 3 cards and actually feels quite good. And the ceiling is way high. The fact that this deck has a lot of things that kind of string together a lot of discards, and that's the dream scenario, the Winter Wonderland, where you get to draw a bajillion cards and smash face.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And it's pretty cool that you kind of, we were talking, throughout the week and whatever, how it was like a revelation almost. We were like, the Skullhorn.
The Skullhorn, yeah.
It's like we have another draw discard on a stick right here. It's right in front of us. It's been there the whole time.
Right. And this honestly was almost out of necessity because, I'm balling on a budget over here, which is one of the reasons I'm playing Brute in the first place. So I don't even have like a Skull or Arcanite Skull Cap or a Crown of Providence. So I'm not really used to having powerful headpieces in the first place. So I'm not like losing those because of the state of my personal collection. So if you guys have those better headpieces, then you're losing more by playing Skullhorn relative to me. I'm like, I was literally playing Iron Rot for 1 block. And I'm like, I don't care about that. This card is totally in. But
that's true.
I do recommend unironically running it if you're in this. Once you go a certain point down the rabbit hole of like really, really wanting 6 discards, which this list is, it's like way down here.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
it's totally good include.
I was going to say, even if you did have the, big legendaries, which I guess by default, most Rhinars are either running the Crown of Providence or the Skull Cap, like you said. in this shell, though, the Skullhorn seems like that's the card you want to play anyway, regardless of legendary or not. You know,
I do think so. Yeah, I'm main deck worthy for sure.
For sure. So, Skullhorn, Scab Skins, Gambler's Gloves, Tunic, and the Meataxe. That's our loadout here. And if you missed our video last time, Roscoe is presenting just here 5 equipment, 60 card shell, kind of just the main deck shell, so to speak. So, we are hoping that this video inspires you to kind of be creative with the rest of the list and try to fill it out yourself. Or maybe depending on your local meta, you can kind of hedge one way or the other. Like for us, down here, southwest side of Chicago, we have a player who basically plays wizard only. So we need to really be cognizant of Kano because, Bradley's going to be running Kano every tournament. So. But yeah,
which Skullhorn is great at.
That's also true. Yeah, maybe
bring your AB.
That's the real reason you put it in. It was just for our local wizard player. But yeah, so Berserk back in Skullhorn in the main deck, always playing it, and the ceiling now in Berserk is crazy turn.
Yeah.
Top of your head, do you have any idea of how much total damage you were dealing on a crazy Berserk turn where you're drawing 3-4 cards off it or whatever? It might have been. Hard question.
No, I don't. But your Savage Beatdown turn is going to start at 18.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, if you get a 6 power go again attack and then Savage Beatdown itself. So that's pretty common. Sometimes you can get an entire additional chain in there, which could be 6. Berserker, or I definitely did do a Blood Rush Bellow into the normal Savage Beatdown kind of thing, which would be 8-20 damage.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about this is it's that damage plus lots of intimidates along the way. So it's lots of reach, which is something that makes me feel really good about this deck. It has a lot of staying power against the kind of things that would normally punish you for drawing and discarding so much. Like anyone who wants to really turtle up and fatigue you are very, very good at punching through hands as far as blocking goes. So it's feeling really good.
Your alpha strike potential there out of nowhere from 20 or whatever, kind of go back to, in a wizard type, OTK style way is certainly there. But
you have a huge amount of kill threat and it's just really easy to just achieve kind of absurd life leads sometimes.
Very cool, Roscoe. Well, appreciate you jumping on. Everyone for watching. Appreciate you, especially you left a comment on the last one. But get those Berserks back in the deck. Get that Skullhorn in your main deck, and let us know if there's anything that you try that is really working for you, or maybe something you see here that could be tweaked or improved. So, on behalf of Roscoe, I am Chris. Thanks for watching, everyone. Keep those Meataxes swinging, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.